Hey yo, welcome to another episode of Off the Beaten Path, your new favorite podcast. And today we have Bradley Hathaway. How's it going, man?
Wonderful, wonderful day.
Wonderful. That's what I like to hear. And let's kind of start from the beginning. How did you actually get into poetry and also music in general?
Yeah, so I started booking shows when I was a teenager, 15, 16 years old, bringing in people. And I went to this church, and there was a pastor there. His name was Clayton Scott, and I watched him do poetry, and then I booked him at a concert. I think it was Living Sacrifice. It might have been what was that tour? One of the Tooth and Nail tours, but before the Solid State tour that I did. I think it was a Solid State tour one. I don't remember. But anyway, this guy got up there and did poetry, and it was about pizza and living life and loving life. And I was like, oh, that was cool. A few weeks later, I started writing. I was running the venue, so I just started kind of practicing in between bands or before bands. And within a year, I was on tour with the Chariot. They called me up asking for a show at the venue I ran. And I said, yeah, but can I do poetry when you go out? I'll sell your merch if you let me do poetry. And he was like, what? And I said, let me show you. And I did a little ditty, and he's like, I'm in. And the next thing you know, I was hitting the road within a year. Yeah.
Oh yeah, man. And with that, is that what where you gained some notoriety was from being
Yeah.
on tour?
Yeah. There was no reason. Yeah. I guess we're kind of in the early days of viral at that time, right?
Right.
So when I went on tour, it was interesting when I started with the Chariot. I actually did a little tour to get to the Chariot, to get to Douglasville. Uh, I went out with some local friends called Mexico, Mexico. We played like Austin, Tulsa, a couple other little places, but no one was really caring. And then I'm out with the Chariot, and we're up in where were you guys? You're in Florida, or were you in
Georgia.
Georgia?
Yeah.
Georgia, yeah. So the masquerade.
Oh, was that the show the first time? That was a big show. That was upstairs, right? Or
Yeah,
was
heavy.
Yeah.
yeah? I'm trying to go back to that moment. I remember the stage and the mic. I feel like they didn't turn the mic on, but I could be wrong. But so even then, we did like 30 dates to get to Cornerstone, and no one was really like that crazy about me as far as I could tell. I was selling some shirts, but then when Cornerstone happened, it's almost like everyone did revisionist history of the Chariot tour, where I just kind of became this thing. And then I went out with Blindside Me Without You and the Solid State tour with the early the OGs of Solid. Not I guess they're not OGs, but As Cities Burn,
Mm.
whatever those bands were, the Chariot, things like that. And then
Right.
it just kind of started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But really, it was MySpace. So back to the viral kind of stuff. There was this dude. He was in that My Children, My Bride band.
Yes.
I think it was before he was My Children, My Bride, the singer. He was X Matthew X on MySpace. I don't know if you guys
Mm-hmm.
remember X Matthew
Mm.
X. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
So X Matthew X was, for people listening that don't know, you used to have a couple friends in your top friends, and it was Tom, right? MySpace Tom, who invented
Yep.
MySpace, and then for whatever reason, I always had X Matthew X, and he was just this huge guy with big plugs, and he was in a band, but no one really knew his band at that time. But he took a picture with me wearing my shirt, and that kind of created this internet who is Bradley Hathaway thing. And then in the MySpace music charts, I was number one in like three categories. It was like Bradley Hathaway metal next to As I Lay Dying, terror, and you're just so stupid and funny. And the photo is me on the golf course in Orlando, like with my little polo shirt. And yeah, and then after those bigger stuff, I just said, I want to bring it tighter. I want to bring this tighter. So I did a house tour in 2005, and this was kind of before house shows became what they are now. We did potlucks, and so I kind of reduced the audience, and then the audiences never came back after that. That was it. That's where I peaked right there. 2005, it's over. The book comes out, it's done. But not quite like that, but yeah, the shows, and then I never had an internet game, and then now it's just I'm just trying to be a farmer in Arkansas, right? That's kind of what I'm doing. So
Living life, man.
Yeah, it's funny because like learning about you, had some friends. We all played in bands and stuff. I mean, it was deeply immersed in the hardcore scene. And had a friend that started quoting one of your poems. Which one was it? Probably hardcore kid that's gone too far.
Yeah.
That was like one of the most popular ones
Yeah.
amongst my friend group. So like downloaded your album. That was the early days of Napster. So I pirated you.
Absolutely, you did. Yeah, I think at that time, 1 in 4 people were pirating albums. That was kind of the stats. If I sold
Yeah.
one album, I had 4 other people that were buying it. So it was something like that. Now there's,
Right.
but carry on. I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah, it's part of that 25%.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just never saw you on shows or anything. I knew you did shows, but again at the Masquerade and saw the Chariot. And in between bands, just you came up in a hoodie and just started reciting poetry. And I'm like, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
Until I heard a poem that I recognized, and I was like, Bradley Hathaway's here. So I just kind of stopped what I was doing, just watched. And like you said, you hadn't really taken off that yet because the Cornerstone stuff hadn't happened.
Yeah.
So it was maybe like 10 or 15 kids along with me, just kind of admiring your work because we
Cool.
had heard it from somewhere else. So
Cool.
it was a very cool, intimate experience getting to see your stuff.
Yeah. It was a trip. I mean, I look back and I just go, what did I do? I did that where?
Yeah.
And it's absurd. When you really think about it, you got up and did poetry at a hardcore show with Remembering Never. And I think it was like Zale, Remembering Never, and some other bands. And Remembering Never at the time, they're super atheistic, right? God-free youth. That was the whole thing happening. And they're up there and they're like, this next song goes out to Bradley Hathaway. We might not understand or we might not believe what he believes, but we respect that he can say what he wants to say. And that's what hardcore is all about. And then I went up to, I was like, whoa, are you serious? And they said something about taking me on tour. They're like, yeah, we want to take you on tour, man. And I was like, what? I would get killed. So I said, nah. I was like, I don't need to go on tour with Remembering Never and 12 Tribes and whoever else is going to beat me up in Syracuse. That's where that show was, in Syracuse. And that was at a time, I don't know what the scene's like now, but at that time, people were beating people up. I mean, it was part of the thing, you know? I got no time for that. Like, I thought after COVID, I'm like, I haven't watched anything but some of the early shows coming back. I've seen people in basements and stuff. And I'm like, they're still doing the punch you in the face over the top of the crowd. Right? Like,
crowd
this much later, you're still doing that thing. It's not into it, man.
Yeah, I get that 100%. And I mean, like, just to touch on it, you know, that was a big thing in the early 2000s was people getting stabbed, people getting jumped, you know, just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time because there's literally a hardcore gang.
Yeah.
You know, like, what did we have in Atlanta?
I was saying Atlanta, we called them Crews.
Yeah, Crews. Yeah, was it FSU? Do you remember hearing about the FSU crew?
Yep.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's
we had Hate City Crew in Atlanta.
Hate City Crew. That's who I was thinking.
Yeah,
about.
And then I'm up there in my little hoodie, being like, guys.
Yeah, it would definitely be like, hey, after the show, let's get him.
Yeah, and I got emails about that stuff. There was one point on that Solid State tour. He is Legend was on that tour as well. I remember. There was some threats about me playing Erie, Pennsylvania. So Erie, PA, 20 years ago was a hotbed of like hardcore and really violence. I mean, that was part of the scene. And I remember getting threats before I got there. And then all the dudes in the tour lined up in the front row. And then I'm up there like, yeah, hey man, I want a hug from Jesus right now, man. And they're all standing there, arms crossed. And I just felt really backed up. But I mean, I would never do that today. I would just be like, no, I'm not trying to go in front of Madball and make a joke about him, you know?
Right. Yeah. Definitely the smarter as you, or wiser as you get older, you know? Most definitely. And one more thing about MySpace, I have to fangirl just for a second because I messaged like 5 of my favorite people at that time. Mm-hmm. No one messaged back. Except Bradley Hathaway.
Oh, that's unusual. Like, that's unusual.
Well, you were feeling good that day, I
guess.
Was,
yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember what I said, but it was something like I don't know if it was me being a fangirl at that time, being like, "I love what you do. It's so fucking awesome," or if it was just like, "Hey man, I saw you last night at the church." You know, I don't know what it was, but you did message back, and I was like, "Hell yeah." He's a normal person.
Cool. Yeah, I don't message anybody back now.
Right.
I kind of haven't for a long time. There was so many emails. You know, it's weird. I had another memory about Atlanta. What's the other venue that wasn't the Masquerade, but Me Without You played there, Blindside played there? Or was there 2 locations for the Masquerade? Did they move?
No, there was only one location. Maybe the Tabernacle?
Yeah, I was about to say you had Tabernacle, Drunken Unicorn.
Tabernacle sounds familiar. I remember making a peanut butter sandwich on the hood of my truck, and a dude came up and gave me $100 because he was like, "You're doing it, man. You're doing it."
Welcome to Atlanta.
Yeah, because normally when I go to Atlanta and get gas, someone's asking me for $100.
Exactly.
So it was pretty cool. No, that's cool. That's cool. That's yeah, I didn't make a habit of it. It kind of got, yeah. I mean, I guess we don't need to rap about the accessibility of the artist, but the times have changed from that kind of you hoped you got an email back or you wrote someone to where now it's this constant expected thing. So I think even the expectations of responses back then, I was like, no, I don't. It just feels too weird at some point, you know.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's funny. I probably just said thanks, man.
It was a little more than that, but yeah, I have no clue. My old MySpace is gone.
That's cool.
Yeah, man, most definitely.
MySpace.
MySpace. And speaking of like playing shows, going to shows, are you strictly a recording artist, just getting your message out and feelings out, or do you actually want to play shows?
Oh, I miss shows all the time. I miss the audience all the time. When I was teaching, I basically was performing in front of students, whether they were kindergartners or eighth graders or senior high kids. Like I love the stage. I love the performance. When I stopped touring was when it wasn't. At a certain point, I could dominate a room, right? I could stand up in front of the masquerade and literally 700 people kind of went, what?
Mm.
So when you go from that kind of presence, or also the form itself, it's not like I got up there and sang an acoustic song at that time. It was this kind of you're like, your whole body is like, wait, what is happening? I've never seen this. So as the years went by, I continued to be able to kind of dominate a space. So if I played a club, if there's 100 people there, they're listening to me, right? There's no other stuff. And then towards the end, that stopped. It became 100 people in the venue, 20 are here to see me, and they can't hear because 80 people are talking behind them. And I said, I don't have time for this. I said, it really just meant too much to me. I'm too intentional, too serious, I feel like it's too important just to be background music at a bar at a certain point. And then I didn't do a good job of networking, right? I didn't do I know this band. I knew all the people in the wrong places, right? I wasn't a hardcore band, so what am I doing hanging out with hardcore people? They're not really going to be into Flesh Eater, which, I mean, by that point, it's already over, right? So 2013, How Long comes out. I did a few tours since then, but today, I don't know how to reproduce what I'm doing. I could try if the money's there. I mean, let's be real. I'm a 39-year-old man looking to get paid. So if the show could be something to where I can leave my family, or it's worth my time. When I went out with the last couple little tours, the expectations were no one was going to be there, but I got to hang out with my friends for 2 weeks. And that was a blast, right? It was like a little vacation. I took off work from the school I was working at, had a blast. Still would love to do little tours like that where it doesn't really matter, but there's just not a lot of opportunities. No one's really asking me. At this point, it would be hard to go, but everything I've ever put out, I mean, I've got, yeah, everything I'm doing has that element and it's already there. It's just not being done live, and we'll see what happens in the future, but it's not a priority for me to get on the road because it's literally a waste of time, right? It's it doesn't, you know, as we're all getting older, when you're younger, I mean, I'm trying to think about retirement now. I just bought 11 acres in the country and I'm thinking about what school my kid's going to go to, right? It's just, we're planting an acre of walnut trees because in 30 years, those walnut trees are going to be worth 150 grand. I mean, that's where my head's at. It's not, can I play this cool little indie venue where people are going to act like they don't like me? Just not really there. I wish it was. And I think with the books and stuff that I'm working on, I see there being some sort of speaking, playing kind of thing, but I'm just live in my room, basically. I mean, monotapes, that's, you know, turn it up really loud and put a photo on, I guess. I mean, there's not any separation. There's no separation in what I'm doing now. That is all as live and intentional and vibey as I've ever tried to be, really. So.
I like how it's very lo-fi and DIY, because that's how the scene started out for all of us. It got kind of commercial there for a little bit and became very polished.
Yeah.
But I think we're very nostalgic about the DIY and going back to that. Hey, let's just do it yourself in your room or your basement or your friend's studio in his closet.
What we want is the energy, right? We don't want to hear that kick drum going tut tut. I mean, some people want the click 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 click, but some of us might like a little more click 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 click. Oh, now I'm feeling it, right? So I'm reading Anthony Kiedis' Scar Tissue biography, and he's talking about finding the drummer with their new drummer, and there's just a vibe and he tried so hard. He's like, we're a live band, we're not a recording band, we want to capture our live sound, and you get the guys in the room. But we really made the foundation of all of my records in a live way. But monotapes is just, there's no one else giving any input whatsoever in the moment, or but that spirit is what's missing, right? So when I listen to new heavy music now, it's just the same sound, the same amp, and I'm just trying to respond to my environment. Just like, what's the vibe right now? What's the sound right now? Do things in a different way. Put the yoga mat, maybe that'll catch a little bit of that sound this time, or put the mic 7 feet away instead of 2 feet away, or one. That's kind of what I'm after, and it's just what feels good. What am I really enjoying right now, and then trying to capture that. Because it's like you said, it's definitely not. It's technical in the sense of there's a drum beat, right? But the sloppiness of it is kind of my personality. It's kind of what I do. It's just that unfiltered thing.
I mean, it's even like, without knowing you, you can listen to your music, or especially monotapes, and, hear your personality bleed through the song.
Really?
So, yeah, most definitely. Because when, speaking to you now and listening to monotapes, this is exactly who I thought Bradley Hathaway was.
Really?
Yes, 100%.
Wow. What? So, like, not to guide the interview, but no one talks to me about the monotapes. I got a couple friends and my poor wife who have only been the sounding boards of all of monotapes. I've only had a few people buy it and a few emails. So I'm curious I would love to hear, like, when you say my personality, what you meant when you said that, or what was bleeding from there. Because to me, these are very vulnerable in this. I know we skipped right to monotapes. We can go right back to mosh pits or whatever we got. But
no, let's vibe.
Vibe. Like, that's just what I'm trying to do, fellas. I'm just trying to vibe. At any, like, the photo that I want you to put on this, instead of showing the video where I don't want the whole world to see my quilt in the back or the window unit. I just don't think this stuff looks good. That's why I'm like, just put a photo. But in that photo, it looks so pretentious, but it's like, no, I'm just vibing. That's just how I actually vibe. That's the way I smoke my cigar and my ginger ale. Just vibing, right? Yeah. So I would love to hear what you thought, you felt, you heard, or what that was like. And you've heard 5 now too.
Right.
And that's, to me, that's the end of the monotapes. Like, that's the journey.
Okay.
I don't see that. Yeah, I don't see that. That spirit is in everything I do, and all the things that I was going to send you that I never sent you, because I'm like, well, I don't know if I need to send me the book. He's just doing an interview. Like, the guy doesn't want to do a deep dive for 1 week probably. But that, like, everything's different all the time, right? It's just, that's where I was vibing for that year and a half, obsessed with death, right? To me, monotapes are about death. Aaron, me and my wife, dude, yesterday, I got a son now, and I always think about him dying. And she's like, can I go 1 day without hearing you talk about somebody dying or death? And I'm like, that's what life is, babe. And that's why I say, am I going to go on the road? I don't know, but I did it a lot. I might be dead. I don't know. Sorry, I'm riffing here. But yeah, the personality, go ahead, hit me.
Yeah, man. With me, honestly, authenticity is a really big thing in music, in whatever genre you're playing it in. And it really comes through, first of all, just at the surface level, it comes through as really authentic. And what you say, you're not trying to be too poetic with it. You're just saying, this is how I feel at this moment, so I'm going to say it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is who I am as a person. And it's just, with me, the authenticity and the rawness of it. And, like I said, you really say what comes to mind. So you're like, I didn't want a baby. My wife wanted one. But now that I have a baby, I bought a gun. So it's like, you went from not wanting, or what I heard is, you went from not wanting a baby to, let me protect this baby with everything that I have, and that's it, just that raw authenticity, man.
Yeah. Cool. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Really bleeds through. And about Flesh Eater, so let's go with the short film of it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's much deeper, but at the, again, surface level, it's this dude He's about to have sex with this woman. He's like, hey, I love Jesus. I'm obsessed with Jesus. And she's like,
Yeah.
all right, that's cool, bruh.
Yeah.
Not the time. I'm
Yeah.
trying to have sex. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to give you what you're asking for.
Yeah.
So, but even with the video, not the lyric video, but actual short film,
Yeah. Yeah.
what was the inspiration behind all that?
I mean, everything is a visual element to me. So the producer of that record and collaborator is Jason Morant and my buddy Jay. And we've worked on stuff since then. But he's really into film, and anyone wants to make videos. And my whole thing is, I haven't made any videos since Good Friday because I haven't had the means or the team or the time, or nothing has been as good as what Good Friday was, right? So that's why, like with these monotapes, it's just these little simple videos or even monotapes. Can't afford a record, make one this way, right? I mean, it's that simple. There's always these restraints in art. And what I love about rules, as much as I like to break rules, I love to live in rules. Like, the best sports events are when people are playing by the rules, right? There's freedom inside of those rules, but you stay in those stripes. And that's why I have a hard time with the NBA today, because they're exploiting those rules, right? Chris Paul is not supposed to be able to go do a layup and then stop so the guy can run in behind him and then get 2 free throws, right?
Yeah, that was so dumb.
Yeah, you're not playing by the rules anymore, and I can't get with that. So with the Flesh Eater video, we got a camera. Let's go shoot a film in New Orleans. Let's walk down there and let's see what we got. And then we just rap about ideas. We found some shady places in New Orleans. I went to my first strip club, and
New Orleans is not the place you want to go for your first strip club.
Right? It was dirty. I mean, and it wasn't just a strip club, but we went to that one on purpose. It wasn't like I was just, I mean, it was a definite thing, which, you can do your thing if you want, but little old Bradley walking in there with my little hoodie on, probably the same hoodie I had on at the masquerade, having a shot of whiskey with this woman telling me these things was pretty weird. So we basically worked within the framework of, we have one camera. What can we do with one camera, right? We're not going to have all these lights. The lights, because a lot of people try to have these lights and it makes things worse. So let's not even bother with lights. Let's do natural lighting. Let's do it really gritty, and let's do it raw. We went to a freaking hourly motel in Louisville. So we did the scenes on the street in New Orleans, and then in Louisville, we went to the seedy motel that burned down 8 months later, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it was seedy. It's like there was strip show stuff, pay by the hour. We paid for 3 hours. I mean, there was a pervert in the window, like jacking off, like, and we're like, close the curtain. This is getting weird, right? This is definitely not how you would make a film in the Me Too era, probably. But really, we just thought it was a cool little film, and it was a great learning experience. That kind of visceral guerrilla style. No one on that street knew we were filming. Jay was just following behind me, holding his thing with a tire rod attached to it that gave it a little bit of weight. And we just walked up and down the street and no one even knew.
Wow.
Yeah, we tried to get it in little film stuff. And that's kind of the beginning of Jay and I's visual journey. And we're still working on things to this day. Things that either haven't come out or things that haven't really come to fruition yet. But we're talking all the time. We're still going at it in one way or another. And but that was a trip. That was a weird, it's like I didn't go all Daniel Day-Lewis, but that is a little bit my tendency. And there is a worser edit, if that makes sense. But I don't know where I'm going, but man, when you're going for it, you're just in it. I'm just in it. We were just in it. That chick was just on me, and she, what I'm saying? It was just like, just weird. I don't know what else to say about it.
That's crazy. Like, I love that, because I mean, one question I love asking on here is like, the backstory to the actual creating the video, and that backstory, like I said, it's authentic. Like, it seems like everything you do, you just want to be pure with it. You don't want to sugarcoat anything. You don't want to bullshit it. You don't want to, toe around the line. It's like, no, let's just do it. Let's
just do it. And I'm butt naked. I mean, it's like at one point, the album cover for Flesh Eater was going to be me butt naked. And so when I make something, that's how far I go. right? Like, but then you have to step back and go, does Bobby who saw me at the masquerade want to see my dong? And I think the answer is probably no. Like, you don't need it. And at that point, all anyone would say is, I saw Bradley Hathaway's dong. And it's just, so let's take the dong out because it's not really helping the film at this point. So I do think there's a really cliche thing that artists have where they want to live a miserable life so that they can create this art because they think it's real or they think they're entering into that. And I know with Flesh Eater, it sounds, I mean, I wasn't Mike Tyson, okay? I wasn't Mike. I don't know if you guys have read Mike Tyson, Undisputed Truth. But I highly recommend it because I know you listen to the Hot Boxing.
Yeah.
I wasn't Mike Tyson, okay? And Flesh Eater stopped at a certain point because that was only what I as a human being was capable of going to. Like I didn't, you know, I could have gone further than going to the strip club. You know, I could have paid $250 for the prostitute to show me a good time. And then I could have somehow gone into the film. But there's a point where you go, this isn't good for me as a human being to keep trying to get into this character because that character wasn't that seedy, right? He wasn't so seedy that it was just, you know, masquerade bathroom hookups.
Right.
That wasn't me. I could only go to a certain point, and then yeah, you know, you make it sound a little worse or whatever because that's what you do. But
And was that a commentary on things that you were seeing, or was it more of a vulnerability where you're talking more about yourself?
I mean, in one way or another, we're always talking about ourselves, but on another hand, we're not. So Flesh Eater really, I mean, everything in art is a reflection of what's going on, right? So when I think about the promiscuity, again, I'm not saying you can't have sex. I mean, my belief system is who knows where now, but like, you want to bang around, you can bang around all you want. That's all good. But at a certain point, you kind of go, I feel a little bit dirty. I'm starting to feel a little bit dirty. You read Mike Tyson's Undisputed Truth. At first, you're like, dude, this dude is just praising all of the things he's done. And then by the end of the book, you're like, no, that's not good. That actually hurts your soul, right? There's this beautiful thing inside of us that we do go too far sometimes. And there are certain decisions that we make where we kind of don't come back in a way, you know? But no, Flesh Eater was all about, all right, you're all telling me that I should have all the sex in the world I want, but what does that look like? What does that feel like? Where does that actually end from people who are talking about it? If it's so good, why are all these dudes killing themselves when they're getting everything all the time, you know? So yeah, your own struggle, but society just reflecting it right back. I'm a Flesh Eater. Well, let's see what that looks like when you have a Judeo-Christian background or when you are obsessed with Jesus. And you're saying you can't get off when other people are saying, I don't talk to Jesus while I'm doing that. I talk to Jesus after. And then I created this character who's like, well, I want to talk about Jesus while he's doing it. That's kind of weird. You know, that inability to separate your physical and your spiritual. And I'm trying to kind of be at one, if you will. Like, I just want to be a happy person. I want peace, meaning. I want all of these good things. I don't want to be a dick.
Right.
But I am. And so I'm trying to get better, you know, I'm just growing.
It almost felt too like your character was trying to figure out what purity actually was. Like, where am I stepping out of the box, and where do I feel safe?
Yeah, and then I think, and I'm not trying to get into our sexual experiences, but not all sex is bad sex, right? Right? There's got to be. I mean, not it's what I really wanted was the human spiritual thing to be part of the fucking, right? I mean, I'm reading this Anthony Kiedis book, and he's got women just walking up to him, bending over, saying, let's go.
Right.
And at this point, I don't know how Anthony Kiedis feels about it, right? Because I'm halfway through the book, and he's not really giving a commentary on it necessarily, but he's saying these things. And I also don't want it to just seem like that's the only thing I think about, or, but you know, we're talking about songwriting, and I'm a man, it's going to be love, baby. I mean, that's what every song ever written is about, love, unless you're a metalhead. Yeah, love and heartbreak. And I thought it was an interesting space for me, and as a human being and as a character, really like as a man going, what kind of life am I going to live, right? We're constantly asking ourselves, what kind of man am I? At least I do that, right? And then I remember my friend, I was in North Dakota. I worked up there a lot, did some jobs. And anyway, he's like, I just want you to commit one way or the other. You're going to be a super freak or you're going to be a good guy. Like, let's just get it decided. then you can stop bothering me with the pestering and the conversation about how you're torn or you're not torn or whatever it is. Like, just choose a path, brother. And I think, you know, even we look back at 2020, a lot of us really self-reflected on who we are as people, who we want to be, what kind of life we want to live, and those growing moments. And I think as artists, you have to work that out. And I'm expressing that and working all of that out. Like, what kind of man do I want to be? But that doesn't mean everything I'm writing is about me per se, right? I mean, it just is what it is. Sometimes I feel like I'm a fireball, right? So I write a song called I Am a Man on Fire.
Hell yeah.
And sometimes that fireball burns out, and Burnout really stuck out to me. The lyrics of that were very penetrating.
I cried when I wrote that. I cried. My wife cried. You know, it's interesting you picked that song, because to me, that song is the only song that I don't think that I got I don't want to call it the performance. None of monotapes were really intended to be heard by anyone. At a certain point, though, I realized I was collecting like a sound. And I was like, I don't think I can get out of this sound. And you know, I didn't have the money to go to people that I wanted to work with, right? So if you want to make a record that sounds good and you're not working with 20-year-olds who are just looking to make something cool, you got to start paying for it. And I didn't have those resources. And it took a year, or it took the whole process for me to kind of be like, I'm okay putting this out sounding this way. This is what these are. So Burnout, you know, I probably only ever played that song 3 or 4 times. But I don't feel like that one really got the spirit to me. I just feel like I wish I would have had the spirit of Billion Years on Burnout. I don't want to mess up your vision with the song, but that song, I thought, for the time, I thought that was just a beautiful time in that moment. But I thought, I wish I would have gave another take on that one, maybe. I don't know. Because I'm trying to figure out why no one's listening to it. I'm going, oh, maybe on Burnout, I just didn't give it my all. But no, that song hurt to write. And that's that kind of level of love, you know, that's what a wife brings. That's what a baby brings. Like these, you know, you're not a little hardcore kid talking about getting your vinyl record signed anymore. You're talking about dying.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think
anyway.
that phase of life where you ruminate on death and what happens when we die, and I don't want to die, or, oh, I'm ready to die today if I need to.
Yeah.
Brings out like a new dimension of love, because you realize, hey, this thing that we're doing is temporal. We don't know what happens when we leave this phase.
Yeah, and then you throw a baby on it, and all of that feeling and all of that intention, and it's just insane. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I'm still trying to work through it. Yeah, when I felt my lean my head and felt my babies kick my head, you know, felt a fear and a love I've never known before. Like, it's really interesting. But the joy, right? And you know, Nick Cave, I don't know if you guys like Nick Cave or not, but he's got a little website called writeredhand.com, I think, and he answers questions from fans. And someone asked about having a child, and they didn't want to have a child because the world's so scary. We're so fearful. Like, do we want to bring a kid into this, right? What does this look like? And Nick Cave said, what you're not hearing is how much joy a child brings, how much positivity a child brings. And so when you're single, everything is still very you, whether you acknowledge it or not. But when that other thing comes along, there's the joy of a child looking at a flower for the first time. I mean, literally, my kid is tripping balls looking at these flowers, because he's 16 weeks old, and every day he literally learns a new thing. And one of the reasons children cry is because they have to work out this new thing they're learning, and it's literally part of their physical and mental process to go, I just saw a flower. Ah! And that joy that comes with that, but also it's the fear and that wanting desire to protect, and that it's a trip. I don't know, it's a trip.
I mean, Bobby and I were talking about it. I don't remember who you said this, Bobby, but you know, we run from fear more than we run towards pleasure. Ooh. And that's so true. And like, you know, Bobby told me that, I think, Thursday, and I've been thinking about it like since then, because everything I do in my life, or everything I don't do in my life, is because I'm more afraid of the fear than I am happy for the pleasure. So it's like, I want to move to Colorado. but I'm not moving to Colorado because I'm afraid of like financial reasons, going there by myself, not knowing anyone. But the pleasure that it would bring,
Hmm.
you know, I'm letting fear stop me instead of letting pleasure take me there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why, yeah, that's
And,
good. That's
and you know,
good.
that's the same. You know, it goes back to the same thing of having babies. Like we have this fear of I don't want to bring this baby into this messed up world, but what about the joy that that baby's gonna experience? What about the joy that that baby's going to bring you as well?
Yeah. And I believe that. So when I got married, part of our ceremony was the reason we are getting married is because we collectively agree with all of you married people here, right? So mom, dad two, mom, dad three, uh, brothers, cousins, etc. They're married, and we said we believe in the joy of marriage. We believe in this commitment. We believe that the hardship that will come from this is worth that security. So, right. So when I'm bummed at my wife or whatever, you look at 2020 without that support systems to whatever arguments we would have had one way or the other, obviously don't even come close to the security of when Trump shuts down the country the first time, you hold your wife's hand and lay in bed and listen to Catholic choral music and go like, here we go, babe. Here we fucking go.
Yeah,
And with the kid, it's the promise of why everyone wants you to have a child, right? So until you have a child, you don't understand why your parents are hounding you every day. Like, when are you gonna have a baby? When are you gonna give me a baby? Because you then enter into that joy that your parents are like, I told you, I told you. And then you also appreciate your parents and you go, whoa, everything they do to a degree should be for the safety of this child and growing him up and giving him the foundation. And that could also be applied to art. People are afraid to make the art that makes them vulnerable or is a little edgier than everyone else or living to the beat of their own drum and that rhythm. Um, and to me, I've had a big year of confrontation. So you're talking about running from your fear, going to your fear. This has really been at my age or at this point in my life where I've never really let people walk all over me, but my fuse is even shorter, where it's, no, these are my boundaries. Starts when you have a kid, you have family boundary issues, right? Everything starts to get complicated. And then you just have to stand up and go, this is going to hurt me. I'm going to cry in my wife's lap before I get the courage to make this phone call or to have this conversation with this person. But that reward of A, I'm going to be respected. B, I'm establishing my boundaries. C, I'm protecting my family. D, I'm not going to be stressed about this and have diarrhea and stay up all night, right? It's just, you move forward. And so, yeah, good on you for being aware of that and then continually moving forward. Like, that's like Monotapes 5. It's done. That's
yeah.
over. Monotapes is over. I'm moving forward. I'm not going to the Furnace Fest reunion show 25 years ago. Like, I'm done. I'm moving. Let's go.
And what's I don't know if I even want to ask this question, but what's next if you know what's
Yeah.
next?
Oh, I got always something next.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah.
cool.
You might as well put the show Bradley Hathaway next. Next poem. At any given moment, there's multiple things. Like, I am never not creating. So what I'm in terms of taking the steps, let's keep with this moving forward in fear, right? Monotapes was really, really hard for me to put out. And again, I go back to my couple friends having a conversation with them all the time. At a certain point, you just got to go, this is it. This is what you're doing. Flesh Eater wasn't very hard. Flesh Eater was like, I thought it was so good. I thought it sounded so good. I thought my team was so good. I thought it was so focused. I knew it was going to cause this, that, and the other, but I was like, this is what I got to do. But I'm also, it's all about my environment. So when I was making monotapes, I was living in Nashville, going to graduate school. I was driving an hour and a half. I was driving 3 hours a day, 2.5 hours a day, commuting in that urban environment. And then I was listening to the hip hop, right? That drive meant I was listening to that beat while I was driving, sitting in the backyard, smoking, drinking, watching the birds with that, like, that rhythm. But even while that rhythm is happening, I'm writing these crazy, weird, experimental essays that no one's ever going to read or hear. And I moved back to the country now, and you get Monotape 5, right? Like, he starts to get a little more. I feel like he's sitting in front of his tomato plants, right? And I am. There's 50 of them out there, and
Oh yeah.
like so now I'm writing poems because I have a child. So I started writing lullabies all the time, and then my mother was throwing away my grandmother's typewriter. It's a Royal Deluxe from 1950 something.
Oh man.
She gave that to me on April 24th. And so again, one of the ways that I tend to create is if something is around, I will make that a creative instrument, or I will do something with it that I didn't intend to do before I had the thing in my house. So with monotapes, it was a drum machine, right? I'm thinking I need a drummer. I also want to start writing songs a little more complete. And then I got the drum machine and I was like, let's forget the guitar. Let's forget everything. And let's just roll with this drum machine, man.
Hell yeah.
So with the typewriter, I started writing poems about my son. And so I'm working on a thing called Daddy Poems. And I'm basically writing poems as much as I can for a year. And then at the end of that year, there's going to be these little typed little rednecky Southern twang typewriters. And I write on it slowly. So it's very short sentences, very slow. But that's the technology. It's this old technology. It's clunky and it's slow. In graduate school, I completed a screenplay. So I've got like 3 screenplays that I've been either working on. Some of them are completed. So I started a farm, right? So now we've got, I'm creating a wildflower field and a you pick 'em farm that my wife and I are going to run. We're going to have blackberries, blueberries, raspberries. We're creating, we're approaching it as this 11 acres as a work of art, right? So when monotapes came out, no one's listening, no one cares. Well, I'm still creating. So now I'm going to create a farm. I'm going to create trees that are going to be there in 35 years. I want to create a space of beauty that people can see. And that's my new art. That's my new LP right there. You want to see Bradley's new art. 2025, come out to the Cave Hands Christmas Tree Farm in Huntsville, Arkansas. And it'll be me sitting in the cabin drinking, what do you call it? Hot cocoa, you know? So it's just like I'm just living in that space of creating all the time. And it's businesses from our friends, right? I got a friend, he's so good at what he does. And I'm just helping him kind of shape his vision for that. Like that's I'm always doing something. I can't help it. I'm always singing, I'm always writing, I'm always rhyming. And what I'm trying to do now is let all that stuff catch up to where I'm comfortable releasing it. I've had a novel done for a few years, but it's really vulnerable. I'm not ready to put it out. Part of it is because I'm not where I was when I wrote it, and I'm constantly doing stuff so fast that it feels like, well, if these dudes think I'm this way, that's not how I was. I was that way 3 years ago, but I wasn't that way yesterday. I'm not that way this morning, you know? Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I'm a writer and an artist, and I love making music. I love the vibe. I love the noise, but I love creating above all of that. And music has been the expression, and the writing is what every person in my life says they don't want to hear another song. They want to hear my writing, which is so funny, but I get it now. I get it. And I'm kind of leaning into that, you know, to be like, what can I do that other people can't do? And I think the voice in my writing, it'll be known. It'll be known. It'll be a while, but you know.
I want to explore you moving out to the country too. One thing I often talk to my wife about and several different friends about is with our generation, we're kind of the generation that experienced the most change via technology because we grew up in the late 80s, early 90s without it. And then just kind of exploded, and we were the first phase of that experiment.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of us are getting sick of the pace that's created for life. Mm-hmm. And either are retreating to the country or wanting to, or at least fantasizing about it, maybe more than even wanting to.
Yeah. Now there's a movement, and the land we just bought was overpriced. You know, that land that we bought was half the price a few years ago. I mean, we're talking Huntsville, Arkansas. It's like 1A football team. I mean, there's a couple thousand people that live there, and this explosion in the past year and a half for people retreating to the country is real. So the land value is 45% higher than it was not long ago. We are at a fascinating place where, and we started this conversation saying that we're having to decide what kind of people we're going to be, right? Culture, America, the world, right? We're all scratching our heads going, I wonder why everyone is really anxious and really mad. Why are we all feeling kind of fried? Why are we no longer talking to one another as human beings or whatever? And then you look back, and I read some stuff from the 70s and 80s or the 80s about the internet. So we were all told that the internet was going to bring us together. We were all told this is this beautiful thing, right? And then you go back and you read the studies they were doing in the 80s from people who were using computers in the workplace. Guess what they were feeling? Anxiety. They felt that they didn't know how to talk to their fellow workers anymore. They were losing connection. And think about those early ass 1980 computers. And already they were inherently doing something bad to us. But we never heard that. Right? We never heard that. We just hear the promise of a thing. And I think our culture, what surprises me, Bobby, is I thought the younger kids would be the generation to see the effects of their words coming back to haunt them. I didn't expect it to be our generation that would see those words come back to haunt us, right? Because we all know we say stupid stuff when we're teenagers. We did not put it on the internet, though, right? You put something stupid 10 years ago on the internet, well, now that's not going to work. So I think I'm afraid of the internet, right? I don't do these interviews. I don't post stuff on the internet. I did yoga before I got on here with you guys because I'm like, this shit's forever. This is forever. Whatever innocent thing I'm saying right now, in 10 years, 20 years, it was not appropriate. Even though right now we're just rapping. We're just rapping. Right, yeah. The fact that I said rapping, someone could look back and go, Bradley used the word brother when he was talking to two black guys.
That's racist.
Let's get him out of there. Let's get him out of there. Yeah. So what I'm encouraged by is that we know something's wrong with the way we're living. We know that this disconnect, this energy, right? So that's why I go back to energy, not like, oh, there's an aura over your head energy, but just a literal pace of life and information. And the way for us that we know how is to try to get away from it. And I think that people do need to get away from this technology. But we have a whole generation of people who are raising their children by watching them in their room when they're sleeping. So our child, we did not get him a video monitor. We got a typical monitor that we grew up with in the 80s, which is staticky. It works in one room and all you hear is that's all you hear. Because I don't want my child to know the feeling of being watched his entire life, even by his parents. Because that's a whole generation of kids now. So when you hear these younger people, they don't think there's anything wrong with Ring doorbells. And I'm like, whoa. That's a mass surveillance system on every little neighborhood. Like, I want to sit on my porch and I don't want anyone to see my face. So why don't I want the world to see my bedroom right here? It's like, well, that's my bedroom. That's mine. I don't want anyone to see. That's my wife's office. But the pace of the modern world is not doing good for us. And in nature, I'm slaughtering chickens now. Like this morning I had chicken crap on my hands because as I move them to new pasture every day, I have to touch the wheel and put it from one tractor to another and I get crap on me. I get that realness of the connection of having an animal that you raised, what went in its body, and then you kill it and then you eat it, right? That kind of nature connection. I don't know that that's the answer for the world though, because I'm a little bit like, we're changing. We are literally going to put computer chips in our brains in 30 years. We are literally going to have gene edited babies in our lifetime. Like this stuff is happening. So I don't want to say that the return to nature is right for everybody, but I do think a lot of people need to get out. I do think it's good for a lot of people. And if you have that inkling, but it comes at a cost. So everything we're doing comes at a cost. Everything has some sort of value. So for you to tackle that fear, to not be afraid, well, that's going to come at a little bit of humility. That might come at some diarrhea. That might come at a few days of restless sleep. So if you want to go to the country, then you're going to have to make those sacrifices where you go, I'm not going to eat out every day, or there's going to be some houses I don't like driving by. We've not bought land because we didn't want the neighbors. I don't want 17 cars broke down. We've been playing cards at poker at 1 a.m. every night when I'm out in the country. I want to be part of that. But that might be the price you pay to get away from the sidewalk or the noise. But I mean, really what I'm trying to do, Bobby, is the monotapes are that same idea of moving to the country, if that makes sense. That what I think people need, not what they want, is a bit more simplicity. And that's the monotapes. It's like, let me just lock you into some kind of rhythm that was the heartbeat that you knew when you were a baby. And then I'm not going to change it. I'm going to let you literally go back to the womb for 8 minutes. And then I'll little mute on the snare and then make the hi-hat pop a little louder. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to talk to me about coming back to the country. But what's unfortunate, like in my area, if we want to get big business about it, you move to the country and then they put in chicken houses where you now have 1 million chickens next to you. And that air comes out of those chicken houses and that it goes for 5 miles. So I moved back to Arkansas, and I'm in Fayetteville, Arkansas. This is a city, but it's rural. Like Fayetteville's 50,000 people. Rogers is 100,000. There's probably 400,000 people in an area as big as Jacksonville, or maybe bigger if that's familiar to you guys, probably.
Yeah.
And we have an air quality index here. And I couldn't figure it out. And it's because of the agriculture, because we're home to literally millions and millions of chickens throwing dust everywhere. So a lot of children in our area have these little nodes on their lungs. So again, the point is the modern world's still going to find you in the country, you know, but would you rather have a little bit of chicken lung or do you just want to feel that anxiety of always being on? Do you want to feel unseen? Like no one can see me outside. No one, you know. I've done some cool things outside.
Oh yeah.
You know, and that's how I try to live, really.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, that's social media could have been so good.
Yeah.
It could have been a great thing if we would have used it properly.
Yeah.
But it was new, and they pushed it out, and they made it appealing to us, and they put little colors everywhere so we would stay on it and put fun games here, whatever. And now it's just gotten so disastrous because it can still be used for good, or it still is used for good. You know, like the fact that someone can catch cancer and make a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
That couldn't happen before. So it has its beautiful things, but there's so much negativity. It's like I was just telling Bobby, I was on Instagram and I saw this dude get shot on Instagram Live and killed. And it's like, I just watched that and it's affecting me talking about it right now. Like my body feels weird. And I'm like, why am I still on Instagram?
Yeah.
Besides to, you know, book people for off the beaten path and it's actual, you know, beneficial. Why am I on social media? You know, I deleted Facebook, but yeah, I think it's not possible, but I think like what you said would be so amazing if like we could just have a mass fuck social media and just have a mass of people do that. Like the world is happening, but we're like this the whole fucking time, you know, staring at our phones. And the world there's so much shit going on.
I know.
And we're missing it.
Yeah,
Totally missing. Yeah.
Nate and I were talking recently about the 90-year-olds or the 100-year-olds that are alive today. They rode on horses when they were children.
Dude.
And now they watch people stare at their phones and they're probably thinking, what the fuck happened to humanity?
In a generation. And it's real. My buddy's granddad told stories of North Dakota, of the undertaker being too drunk, coming around a corner too fast, and the dead body falls off the back of the wagon and ends up in a pond. Okay, that's like a grandpa telling a story.
Yeah.
Right. There's stories of people in North Dakota. Again, this is North Dakota. They're a little more rural than some places, but going in blizzards to help people give birth. You know, so Randy and I gave birth. She gave birth in a mobile home. So we didn't go the doctor route. We went with a midwife because I didn't want to go into the modern world in the time of COVID and feel that lack of connection with other people. I didn't want to be told that I couldn't be there with my wife when she was having these things happen. Also, I wanted to be badass and have a baby in a mobile home off a dirt road in the great state of Arkansas, man.
That is badass.
And let me tell you, man, if there was anything I could tell anyone to do, if they feel that that's something they want to do, get a good midwife, right? Take care of your body, eat healthy. I mean, my wife is a machine, dude. She was squatting, eating. She did everything you could do. And for me to be with my wife in the middle of the night, helping her through giving birth, just me and her, until the midwife shows up at 5 a.m. and she's like, you're at a 9, let's go. And then you give birth. I mean, that whole day, my wife in the front yard and we're like, we're having a baby today. And I'm like, there's a full moon tonight. You're damn right we're having a baby. And that experience, but that comes at a cost. It's, you know, you're afraid because you don't want anything to happen to your wife. But you also think, you know, I did all the steps to prepare us for this event. No one is worried about this. You know, you can be at a hospital in 30 minutes. But my uncle has kind of always said, what happens when kids no longer not value their, when they do something so different from the generation before them, right? So before modern technology, you did what your daddy did, and he did what his daddy did, and his day went what his daddy did. You are always connected by this kind of chain of this is what we do. And then technology comes along, and not only does technology change what's being talked about, it changes the way our brains are thinking, right? You have scholars who cannot read a book for more than an hour now. You have you watch ESPN, you're watching a game, you count the number of things they're wanting you to read on the screen, and you're like, dude, I'm just trying to watch the pull up J shot. I don't need the betting odds on this, you know? But what it's going to take for people to get off the social media is they're going to have to do the hard thing. And I don't think people want to do the hard thing, right? 50 million Americans eat fast food every day. Okay. COVID just wiped out fat people, like straight up. It was clear you need to stop eating some of that food if you want a chance.
Ew.
And we did not do it. My family didn't do it. I'm the only one in my family that even eats halfway decent, you know? And I'm just looking at them like, y'all all got diabetes this year. Don't you see a connection? How are you not making the connection? And they take the medicine that lets them still eat the stuff. And for us to come out of this, it's going to take individuals making decisions and doing the hard thing. Like, I might not get to go to the masquerade every Friday night anymore, or I'm going to have to drive 45 minutes to get there. But that discipline is missing. And that's why I'm sure we like UFC and we like sports, because we're watching dudes who've dedicated their life to this goal. And even you guys pressing on, you're 4 months in. I don't know your intentions. I don't know what you guys' goal are, but you're pressing on. You're like, I'm going to talk to my brother. And we're going to do day drinking, and we're going to do bands, and we're going to do fight stuff, and we're going to pressing on, whether there's 4 people listening or 45 or 150 or whatever it is.
Exactly.
You know? And even me, when I lost 2,000 fans on Spotify this year when I removed my older stuff. This year alone, I threw away like 4,000 Bradley Hathaway CDs. I've got old posters that I'm using in the garden so that the weeds don't grow up, like cardboard posters. I literally have silkscreen Bradley Hathaway posters, hand numbered, sitting on the floor and in the dirt because she's helping my garden not weed, because I'm like, well, no one's buying this stuff. But that kind of shedding and moving forward.
At least you're using it.
And I love that I was about to say, I love that repurposing stuff.
You're not throwing it away.
No, that's what's cool when you start going this natural element, right? So right now we go to the store. I mean, I love what we're talking about because this is all up my alley. But you go to the store, you buy a chicken breast. That's all you buy. You buy the chicken breast, you eat the chicken breast. There's nothing left. You raise your own chicken. You get the chicken breast. You get the thighs. You get the legs. You get the heart. You get all the stuff that you don't get at the store. You get the neck. You get the wings. You get everything. And then after you cut off your chicken breast, guess what? There's still meat on the bone. So what do you do with that? You put it in a crock pot, let it cook for 8 hours. Now you have a bone broth made of the nutrients of the chicken who's giving you life through that meat and through that bone. And guess what? You got even more meat that's fallen off the bone. So now you can make yourself a nice chicken salad sandwich, right? And then you can take those bones and you can either give them to your dog, who's now getting protein. You're now feeding another animal who is inherently wants something meat oriented. Or you put it back in and you get bone broths. You keep the thing going forward. And when you're trying to live like holistic life, where your spirit, your body, your mind, and all of those things, that's what I mean. That's the essence. That's the sucking the life out of a thing, right? Like, I'm going to raise this chicken and I'm going to use every bit of it. And until you do that, you don't recognize the richness of it. And also, I think we're losing a lot of money by doing a lot of these things, you know, the other way. We went to Target yesterday. We wanted to buy a scale to weigh the baby. There's a $20 scale and there's an $8 scale. And most people pick like, well, that one's easier. I put a battery in it and it's digital. And I'm thinking that's $13 more. And I got to buy a battery too. What am I really wanting to do with this? I can do that for $7.99. For $13, I could buy 1/4 of my favorite vinyl, right? I could buy 1/4 of it. And those decisions are the hard decisions that I think we all need to start making. Because guess what? We were lied to about school debt. I don't know what you guys are rocking if you went to college, but that stuff's a weight around our generation's neck, you know? And I want to retire when I'm 50 years old. And I'm not going to get there if I keep buying the big fancy scale. I got to buy the one that doesn't take a battery.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a way of life, fellas. I mean, it's just a way of life. I'm just trying to live it.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like me and my wife, we live in the suburbs of a very small city. It's not a metro, but even here, you were talking about like getting to a place where you can turn off. Like, I feel at home even in the dark. We can't turn off because I hear my road till 2 a.m.
Yeah.
It doesn't even get dark here. Like when I visit certain places and it's dark, it's like, holy shit, I haven't seen night in a long time because so much light pollution.
Think about that. Look at what you just said.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the night in so
Yeah.
long. Can you imagine anyone before modern technology saying that?
Exactly.
You
No,
wouldn't have known how to get anywhere without looking at the lights at
exactly.
night. So why do we want to go back? Because we know, wait, whoa, my whole body is telling me I'm supposed to know the stars. I'm supposed to know the sound of the summers, right? Right now, all the big crickets and the cicadas are coming in where I'm at now, and the lightning bugs are coming up out of the ground. When we lose that connection, for some of us, it we just know that's us. That's like, this is who I am. I belong, you know,
Yeah,
inside an air conditioner with a big window looking out at the nature. Right? That's how.
yeah, yeah. Cause I moved away honestly just 30 minutes away, and where the city I used to live in when we were kids, it was a small city, but now the Falcons, they practice there. So
Wow.
that brought
Yeah.
in all of this, infrastructure that was built. And I didn't realize it until I moved 30 minutes away to the country. And it's like I look up and, like Bobby said, I see all the stars, but I'm just like, bruh, I've
Yeah.
been missing this,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize that. Subconsciously I might have realized it, but I
Mm.
didn't realize it until I saw it and was like, this is closer to what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people, they're born for the city. They're
Yeah.
born for that's them. But
Yeah.
me, yeah, I need the country.
Yeah, and so for you to be you is to go to the country, right? So that's what I like
Yeah,
about the promise of freedom or democracy or America, or what I hope people can have is they get to live the way they want to live. And if your calling is to go out to the country, then I think you're missing something in your life, right?
right.
The first time I went to North Dakota, I was having a whiskey listening to ISIS, and I felt something inside of me say, "There's something in you that wants to come out here, and it's only going to come out if you're here." And I took a job and I didn't leave, and I stayed there for 6 months, and I saw what that promise was. I saw it come to fruition, and what it means to me even now. Um, I mean, I'm not trying to tell everybody they need to go out to the country, but I think people need to start making hard decisions about how we're living because,
Right.
you talked about social media and the pretty colors and the dings. Not just that. When they made Twitter, they went to the casinos and learned how those slot machines were made, what made people go to the slot
Mm,
machines. What made them go to the slot machines were the little dings. That little endorphin, like ding ding. So what
right.
do? They add a ding ding to Twitter. They put a little bell. So it's not accidental. They
Oh yeah.
literally want our eyes, they want our attention, they want all of us. And I think younger people are gonna go. The promise of whatever you guys said was there is not real. But it might be a war to get there, man. It might be. It might be. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yep.
and oh, go on, Bobby.
No, I was just gonna riff on that, saying it's almost like a Pavlov's experiment with his dogs, where he would starve them to a point of like exhaustion, ring a bell when he would feed them, and they
Mhm.
were geared to, hey, it's time to eat. Almost with the social media, it's like, hey, they're starving for connection, they're starving for other people's attention. Let's ring
Yeah.
this little bell and tell them that, hey, it's here. Come eat.
Yeah.
Get your
Yeah,
spiritual food, your mental food that's not really there, empty carbs.
And then our stomach hurts,
yeah,
right? It's like my
yeah,
stomach hurts.
yeah. Exactly,
Then we
man.
go back to that same thing
Anxiety.
for medicine, and it's not
And
medicine.
that's why we need real art, right? We need those real musicians who are and the real writers and the real filmmakers to tap into that source of the stars at night, right? Because it doesn't just mean I'm looking at the stars at night. That when you look up at the stars at night, that's what everyone before you did. The Dragon Man in China. Did you guys see that? That they found that skull. So they found the skull. It's called the Dragon Man. They found him like 60 or 70 years ago, but now they've confirmed that they think he's not Neanderthal. He's a missing link, if you will. But they showed this painting of him, and he was just this burly caveman looking dude with cankles that you've never seen before. And holding like I don't know what he was holding. It might have been a tool of some sort, but he was in a stream, and it was just this beautiful mountain behind him. And I'm telling you, I looked at that picture and I was like, yo, that's me. I'm China Man or Dragon Man, not China Man. I'm Dragon Man. And that whole like I don't want to get all weird about ancestors and stuff. I'm not saying any of that, but like, we have certain things that we need and we want, and we've tried with technology to put those aside, and we're watching our bodies and our minds crack when we've gotten away from core communication between human beings and confrontation. When you have a child who is raised with his own iPad, right? 2-3 years old children with their own iPads, and they're reading the screens, they're reading and they're playing the games. They are missing out on human interaction, right? So we always put children in the room away from adults. Well, now we have children who don't know how to talk to adults because they were never made to have lunch with their uncle or with the stranger that came over. They never saw, this is how a man talks to another man at dinner. They never saw confrontation, right? When I was a kid coming up, you had to call the girl's house to talk to the girl's dad before you talked to the girl. That's a big deal to a teenage boy, to a 12-year-old boy. That's a gatekeeper. That's a ritual. That's a right. Guess what? Send me some titties, baby. Right? That's all you got to do now. You don't have that gatekeeper. So I think that is happening, and it's going to take some of us going, I'm not doing that, right? So my kid, what happens to a kid's brain when you look at the studies, when they're watching screens before 2 years old, they don't develop the way that they're supposed to. And it's just natural because you want to give the kid something to watch TV so you don't have to hang out with him. But we're not about that life. And we're raising a little freak is what we're raising. We're gonna be a little weirdo.
But that's awesome because think about it, like I went to a friend's house and his 3-year-old son was holding, I don't know, it's like an iPad or something, but he's watching something. And think about what our parents used to tell us. Hey, back away from the TV. You're sitting too close.
Oh, yeah.
But they have a TV right here, burning their fucking retinas.
Literally, they're going blind. I mean, have you seen the studies? They are literally going blind.
That's so sad.
They are having degenerative eye development because of the blue screen and stuff. And again, that gets us back to what we were saying. You got to do the right thing is hard, right? Doing the right thing is hard.
It is.
When someone stands up, be it either side, right or wrong, or whatever your perception is, when someone puts their time on the line, their life on the line, that's why when I think about sports and why I like sports, I'm like, I don't think people understand when you look at the Michael Jordan 30 by 30, or when you hear Allen Iverson say, we're talking about practice, or you hear Bo Jackson going, I'm not going to practice. Like Kobe Bryant practiced. Like,
oh man,
you know what I mean?
5 a.m. shooting
That's
shots.
He did the hard thing to get the result. So if I want to be with my wife, I gotta do certain things that may be out of my nature to make my wife feel loved, right? If I want my kid to be a thinking human being, then I want to provide a space for him where he gets enough sleep so that his little brain works, right?
Right.
A baby that doesn't sleep 8 hours a night isn't thinking right. He's not developing right. Because what happens when you don't sleep 8 hours in a night? You get jacked up. Babies are getting jacked up, and then you put blue light in front of their face. So no, it's what's really like the difference between Bradley, you guys saw on Masquerade, and now, like anyone else, is life was harder than I thought it was. Like when I got in the real world, went back to academia and took some jobs and did this and that, I was like, whoa, this is hard. There is something sometimes where you just don't want to get out of bed. I developed anxiety as a year and a half ago. It's like, what is this? What is this thing that I feel? This is what everyone says they feel. Oh my gosh.
Oh shit.
Right. So what does that mean? I get a Sam Harris podcast and now I'm meditating, listening to my thoughts, hearing him say tripped out stuff. And I'm like, I don't think this is for me, but I'm doing my stretches. I'm doing my exercises. I'm doing whatever I got to do to survive because I now have experienced that feeling that people have, that they can't go to work, that they can't engage with someone. And my answer to that is, then you need to get on your knees and do a downward dog. Like, you need to do whatever you got to do. You need to breathe. You need to go to anger management. You need your wife to say, I'm going to leave your ass if you don't stop calming down. Right. I get it. I get all of it. That's why kids, when you hold a baby, dude, you think two things. I thought, I'm never leaving you. And then I thought, I understand why men leave their children. And who's going to step up, and I've been on the side where the dad's left, right? So then you throw in my baggage with my family, and then you see your baby, but and that's the kind of life I think the country life can give you, a little bit more perspective, where you can go, I would never leave my child, but I understand why every man would leave their child. And that's kind of where I the art and the life, that's just where I exist. These two coins, you know, like I love what's his name? It was the biggest Native American book in the 60s. Oh my gosh, I forget who it is, but he talked about his role in his society and his community was to be the jokester. And basically anytime something terrible was happening, he brought the humor. And that was a whole role in his culture. Like, who's the guy that's going to make us laugh during the funeral? And but that kind of balance, that's what we're trying to enter into. I think when you say I want to get away from the computer, I want to get into the country, because it's a myth if you think you're going to go to the country and be a happier person. I think your cholesterol might go down, you know. But you read Mike Tyson, yeah, when he wasn't out. Well, no, he's not a good example. I don't know. You're still going to be you. You're still going to have your things. And then you have to work off those years of habits that you formed, you know? So.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is that wherever you go, you're going to find yourself there. So what you're running from, if it's internal, you're just taking it with you.
Yeah.
In your little meat suit.
And then you got to face it. And some people can take a drug and they can face it. Other people need to get on their knees and do downward yoga. Other people need to run marathons. But I do think it's something physical. I do think part of our problem is that we're losing we've not only lost stuff with social media, we're losing our bodies. We're losing our physical. That's why my kid, you know, I want him to be naked as much as possible. So the other night we were out on the apple tree, and he's 4 months old now. So this would have been 2 weeks ago. He's out in his little chair. We're sitting under the apple tree, and the wind starts blowing and it's rustling the apple trees, and the kid just starts giggling. He starts laughing. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's the wind. That's the wind. And I said, you know what? Let's get naked. I said, let's get naked. I'm going to get you naked. So I took his clothes, took his diaper off, and I held him there. And when that wind blew, he just got to feel that breeze all over his little body. And he was just giggling and giggling and giggling. And so that's why I think a lot of the answer to some of our ills is just actual movement, is our actual physical bodies. And that's why people like sex. They discover their bodies. That's why people like working out. When I tried to do MMA a few years ago, all you had to do, one of the moves was you put your butt against the wall with your legs in the air, and you're against, like, you're resting, your legs are okay. Can you imagine what I'm trying to say? You put your butt against the wall and your legs are in the air, leaned against the wall. And so your whole job was to, now you have to rotate your body to where your legs stay on the wall, but your butt never touches the ground. So all you're trying to do is roll over. But that was a movement that I've never done in my entire life. That was a practice that my body had no idea existed. And it was incredibly difficult, but it was so cool to discover a new move in my body. And that's why I think we try to disconnect our bodies and all these conversations, body, spirit, whatever. It's like, man, you gotta, there's something happening. You need the tomato, or you need the watermelon to have seeds every now and then. We got like 100 watermelons, so I'm growing watermelon, and they have seeds in them. And I'm like, I know you can take the seeds out, but isn't that what a watermelon is supposed to have?
Exactly.
And you want to spit the seed. Yeah, dude.
So you can't have that speed sitting contest with a seedless watermelon.
Right. Now it's a whole nother bag trying to get them to taste good. I'm like, I did everything right. Why isn't this mind blowing? And that's kind of where we're at with the farm. We're trying to fine tune. You know, if you buy a Bradley Hathaway watermelon, I want it to be the best dumb watermelon you ever had.
Exactly.
You know, because if it's not, I don't want to sell it. I really don't. And that's how I feel about the music. I don't put out, there's 1,000 songs no one will ever hear because no one wants to eat that, you know. But where are you guys at? Like, what's your guys' goals? Like, what are you guys doing?
In life in general, or with the podcast?
I think with this podcast, I think it's interesting what you got going on. I just think you're yeah, let's stick with just the podcast. What's the, I mean, it's clear to me, like in the same way you listen to the mono tapes. Like I told you when you wrote me, I said, you have me at David Foster Wallace. I was like, this is a different kind of little podcast here, whatever this is.
Yeah, what it is, I don't fucking know. But we're doing it, whatever it is. And the goal is, I think it's kind of like a 3-piece thing, you know. one, we want to give people the platform that maybe they wouldn't have, so they can speak and get their thoughts out. Two, the same kind of thing with that, people that fuck with them but don't really know who they are, and then they get to dive in and be like, oh man, now I know more about this artist. Or and then the third one, I don't know, just getting to meet new people, and rather that's people that we've been following, we've been known of, or rather I hear someone or Bobby hears someone, he's like, dude, this band is fucking awesome. And then we get to speak to them, and that's just cool as shit in itself.
And for me, the inception of it, I started a little bit over a year and a half ago. Me and a buddy at work were just talking out loud because he was introducing me to new music that I had never heard before, a lot of indie stuff, and made me think back to like that 05 to maybe 08 time period where it's like we were discovering new art for the first time. We were all sharing it, and there was a little community built around it, different genres, but everybody had like their own little underground thing that they were doing during that time. And I kind of lost that, and it's like, man, I haven't shared new art with anybody. I haven't even consumed new art for myself. Maybe I should start like an online radio station where it's not genre specific. If I like it, I'm going to play it. But then I started looking into the specifics of that, and that gets very convoluted when it comes to the legalities of it. It can get very expensive when thinking about all the licensing you would have to do. So I was like, that's probably not the avenue I want to go.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what if you turn it into a podcast and you just meet these artists and speak to them? And that's what I did with no goals, no intentions. But the way my brain works, it's the capitalist machine is very much inside my psyche. So it's like, how can I monetize this? How can I grow this? What am I going to do with it? But like you were talking about with the anxiety of that type of living, it was crushing. I told Nate, I was like, thinking about waking up and messaging somebody on Instagram was too heavy. Posting interviews was not something I wanted to do, so I quit. I did like 4 or 5 interviews. Nate did one with me. And then just without warning, I just stopped doing it. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore because the goal aspect of it was heavy. So Nate was on me for a few months. We restarted. And for me, like you said in the beginning, it's vibing. My favorite people I meet are creative people who express it, because I believe everybody's creative.
Yeah.
But I like to see the people that intentionally express it. I like the way their brain thinks. So for me, it's goal free, and I just love these weekly conversations.
Cool.
And I hope we do it well enough that people listen to it and enjoy it. So yeah, I love this. And like now that the world's opening up, it's like, man, what if me and my wife can like do a road trip and go see this Hathaway farm? Or
there you go.
Go see my buddy that I met in Boston, like play a show on Friday night.
Yeah.
Or I can go have a beer with my friend in Seattle who taught me about the stuff that person taught me about. I almost went a little bit too sensitive, so I was like, let me back off. But now I'm building a network of people that has no goal. It's like, if I'm in that area, I have a friend I can stay with or somebody I can meet at the pub.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you know, like Bobby said, he's the one that started it, and he kept asking me, he's like, Nate, be my young Jamie. Nate, be my young Jamie. And I was like, no, I don't think it's something I want to do. I don't think it's something I want to do. Yeah. And he would send me, or he would be like, hey, I just posted an episode, so I had to go watch it, and then I would critique him on it and be like, hey, maybe do this, or hey, actually the editing, it sounds too crisp. Just don't edit it, you know, and just give little critiques. And then I was like, you know what, man? There's this artist that I've been fucking with for a couple of years. If she messages back, then I'll come on. And he was like, all right. And she was real cool about it. Let's bratch her. And yeah, I did it. And I was like, this is awesome. This is awesome. And then it just kind of died. Like the passion died. It was like I was getting into it. And then Bobby's like, all right, I don't want to do this. So once we had a break, and I was like, all right, I'll post, I'll message people, you handle other stuff. He's like, all right, yeah, let's do that. And now it works out perfectly.
Team. Good.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, everything I hate doing, Nate loves doing. So I'll just come on, smoke a little weed, and start the interview, man. And like, I appreciate all your time, Bradley. This has been amazing.
Dude, I was listening to you guys this morning, and that story you had about the Backstreet Boys, and thought it was the Hot Boys.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I'm listening to this because you guys, it's weird. Y'all are, to me, I don't know the internet. Okay. I really just don't know it that well. When COVID happened, I started going on every day to look at Facebook and stuff, not to really engage with it, but I just wanted to see what people were saying or what the vibe of the country was on the internet. So you guys' knowledge of these like viral videos from years ago or weird pop culture stuff, but then just hearing you guys be like, yeah, if we would have got the Hot Boys, we might have gone a different direction. But I love that shit, man. I tore that up. It's so funny because I'm like, wait a minute. I think these dudes are the internet. I think when I think of the internet and I don't know anything about it, I think these guys are that thing. It's on the internet. Like, this is what people do. They talk and they tell stories and they're interviewing the weirdest people. I mean, no disrespect, but like, guys got some weird. I'm sure I'm a weirdo too, right? I'm sure there's no telling what this sounds like, but there's some weird stuff, and y'all are just rolling. I'm scratching my head, going, who are these dudes interviewing this person? What is going on, man? No, I think it's interesting. I think your vibe, like, I just, there's a, like, again, David Foster Wallace next to Bury Your Dead references and stuff like that. It's just, it's a unique spot y'all are in. Anyway.
Most definitely.
Yeah, well, it's also cool because I get to learn my brother in a way that
I'm sure
didn't have access to, because he tells stories or reveals things that he has going on that doesn't come up in like a normal conversation over dinner with a family all around. So
no, the dynamic between the two of you, like little brother, big brother, is really cool.
Yeah, I love it
because it's obvious, like the way you talk about, my brother showed me this, or my brother was into it, so I was into it. It's just cool. It's just that, like, this is Nate with his big brother. So I didn't know the role, so it's interesting now to know, like, this is the responsibilities between the two of you.
Right.
I wanted to screenshot. There was one view of you, Bobby. It looked like it was out of a Hitchcock movie. You had the light. You were sitting in the dark with the TV screen lighting you up. And I showed my wife and I said, this is straight out of a 1950s movie. And I wanted to, I don't know where it was though, but I wanted to be like, dude, this needs to be your background. Whatever this is, like, you just need to be sitting here like this, because it's just so freaking weird.
I love it.
It's weird because you guys are like the Cartoon Network. When I think of the Cartoon Network, but it's not dirty like the weird late night, dirty, like uncomfortable kind of.
Right.
But it's still like that world to me. It feels like y'all are in that world in some way.
Right. Like some adult
made
Swim
it to TV,
shit.
but it's not quite mainstream. It's like, what are they doing and who wrote this?
Yeah, Adult Swim. Good call.
Adult Swim. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dan, we hardly even talked about any music. Was that it? Is that all the monotape stuff? That's all we got?
I have something on the monotapes. Let me see. I wrote it down.
I mean, if y'all need to go, we can wrap it up. But you're not keeping me at this point. I'm having fun, so.
Yeah,
I'm chilling with. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm chilling. So on the song, I think it was on monotapes 5 that you sent me. Some Days. So the reason I like that song is because it reminds me of Nirvana, "Come As You Are."
Interesting.
You know, because he man, what's the lyrics to "Come As You Are"?
Come as you are, as you were, as I want you to be. They don't be late.
I think it's take your time,
Hurry.
don't be late.
Yeah, take your time, don't be late.
Yeah, so take your time, don't be late.
Choice is yours. Something like
the choice is yours.
I've had enough.
I remember the Weird Al Yankovic version though, where he just had cotton balls in his mouth.
Oh man, but yeah. So that's what it reminds me of, is because you're going back and forth with, this is shitty, this is awesome, this is beautiful, this is ugly, and Lil Peep does that, and Life is Beautiful. He's like, oh, you got cancer, life is beautiful. It's like, life is still beautiful, but there's still shitty stuff going on. So with that song, what was your inspiration to be like, hey, I'm happy sometimes, I'm sad sometimes?
It's so funny you mentioned that one, because that's the only one on there that I don't want to put on the record.
Please keep it.
Because but it's weird. So that song, literally, you heard the first part of it where it goes, some days I feel, and then it stops, and then it goes, some days I feel. That was literally me writing it right there. Like, oh, let me drop that voice down a little bit. And that was it. And then I wrote down on a Post-it note what I think the sound was on my keyboard. That song, I cannot believe that's the one you pointed to. Because Randy and I listened to it. My wife makes fun of me for that one. Every now and then she'll be like, some days I feel like I don't have a fall. And I'm like, I know, Randy. I know. That song, I love the tone and I like the voice, but those lyrics are butt. I'm like, there ain't nothing. These lyrics are straight butt.
I like it.
But there's something about it that feels like an anthem. There's something about it that feels like, dude, this could be in a stadium. And I'm not saying that it will be or it deserves to be, but there is a presence about that song that I find annoying to me. So we talk about vulnerability. That's what I mean. Like, do I really want to say that? I'm not even rhyming. And I love not rhyming, though. I love using the same words. But so to me, that's one of the weakest songs on there. And here's what I mean. Here's what I think where artists have to try to figure it out. There's a reason I have a weird time with that song, but I also love it. I love that song, but it's like not a good song. Okay. And that's what the mono tapes are. So for you to say that confirms it. That means it's got to go on there. It's got to go on there the way it is, and I can't change it. But that's so funny. But what was the inspiration? I was just vibing one night, and I was feeling down, and then I tried to rhyme Samson with in, and it's Samson, and I mean, it's a throwaway. It was a moment. It was just a moment. So, but it's the same idea of what I was saying. I remember this name now, Black Elk Speaks. So Black Elk Speaks was one of the first like autobiography type narratives of Native Americans from the time period of people who would have remembered the reservation camps and things like that and the slaughters that happened. So his vision was, I'm going to be the jokester in the midst of this sorrow. I'm going to bring life and balance in this moment of sorrow. So those lyrics are really just kind of, man, some days I feel like a rock star and some days I don't. There's not much there. Sorry, Nate. But I cannot, that's why I told you when I said some of these aren't, the edits are weird or they might not be on there. And I thought, well, I don't want to go in and change the whole Dropbox file and take out that song. That is so funny.
I'm glad you didn't want to take the hard route on that one.
Well, so what, is it just the vibe to you, or is it just the lyric? Is it the tone? I mean, for you to pick that song out, like, I mean, that's so funny to me.
To me, it's honestly the lyrics. Like, rather you might think they're corny or cheesy or whatever, it's like, that's how I feel. Sometimes I feel like a motherfucking rock star, and sometimes I don't. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm on top of the world, and sometimes I feel like I'm a pile of shit.
Yeah.
That's not in the song, but that's the feeling of it, you know.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Just try and like find balance and enjoy both.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to keep saying life is hard, but I lived in a bubble until a couple years ago. Really, I mean, I had no idea how selfish I was. I had no idea what I could do to a room when I walked into it. By that I mean negatively, right? There was this when I was working at the college. I was having a bad, weird day or whatever, and I walked into the room like I thought I always walk into the room. And the girl that was sitting at the desk said, I have never felt so much negative energy off of a person before. And that room changed when I went in there. And I remember thinking, yeah, I'm like Kanye West. That's, you know what I mean? I walked in and the whole room changed. I know what that's about. But I told myself, that's not good. That's not a good energy. That is not, I don't want it to be that dude put off a vibe I've never seen or felt before. And that was kind of a recognition of a power, if you will, of I'm using power in the sense of not everyone can walk into a room and change the room negatively or positively for that matter. So where was I going with that? What led it into that? I totally lost it. So the hard thing to do is to go, I don't want to have that presence. I don't want anyone to feel that negative. I don't want people to really feel that way if that's the way I make people feel. And you don't know until enough people tell you. Like, dude, you're a dick, dude.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's certain medicines that some of us may or may not take that allows us to reflect a little bit more than we would in another state of mind. And so you kind of step out of yourself and go, I don't want to be that. You know, there's like genuine misunderstandings and You know, if we're in a world that's afraid of confrontation, I'm probably going to be someone people won't like when I just go, oh, no, you said there was going to be 2 bands on the bill. That's what our agreement was. You put 7 on there. That's not going to work. And then you leave town and you're the bad guy and the whole town says you're a dick. It's like, well, that dude just broke his contract. Anyway.
Yeah. And
I lived in a bubble and now I'm not anymore. And I'm dealing with the hardships people face in the day to day, you know, be it poverty or mental or whatever.
Yeah, and that's something, that's a fear in my life, I guess you would say, is because I've never had to deal with depression or anxiety on a daily basis. I have felt depressed, I have felt anxiety, and anxiety to me, I guess they're both scary, but I don't want to belittle or try to compare them, but anxiety is scarier to me because when I felt it, I didn't know why I felt it, and I didn't know how to stop it. And I was like, "What is this?
Yeah.
What's going on with my body? Why do I feel this way? You know,
Yeah.
like why do I have to go take a shit? Like why why is my whole body just?" And with depression, I always knew what it was, even though I couldn't get out of it. I couldn't get out of my own head. So that's something that's a fear of mine. Is like you said, you used to not have this anxiety, but now you have it, and now you're having to find ways to deal with it and be like, this is me, I accept it, but how do I lessen it daily? You know?
Yeah.
That's a scary thing for me.
And it's hard, and it takes work. And again, to bring up sports again, those dudes, they might have some anxiety, but they're making goals, they're setting goals, and they're going for it. That's why I was interested to know what you guys are. I've really gotten into making goals, man. I make a list in the day, in the morning, because it's just trying to learn how to do this farm. I mean, if we're not moving forward, where are we going? And then, I mean, life is really cool, and I don't like the negativity that everyone seems to be associating with life now. So let's try to figure out a way to deal with the life and to keep moving forward, you know? So.
Yeah, one thing I like about your farm life too is it forces discipline and it forces intentionality. Because if it's time to harvest and you messed up 3 steps ago, there's no quick fix. Like you can't make your watermelons all of a sudden just grow from seed to watermelon in a week. Yeah,
I lost 2,000 vegetables last year.
Yeah.
Like I'm not good at it. You know what I mean? I'm not good at it. Yeah. I mean, even with raising the chicken and stuff, it's the better. I've gotten so much better as you go, but you don't know. Like you don't know until you start to practice things. And but yeah, no, I want to live that intentional life because I believe in it. I believe that there's a reason these dudes are up in the mountains, not talking to anybody, meditating for 50 years. What's that? And is there a way to get what they've got? No, I'm rapping. Ignore what I just said. I'm going off the train.
But even
I'm getting all Buddhist on y'all now.
Hey, I was saying,
that's a crazy that non-dual shit for an hour and a half. So I've been waiting for it to come out.
Look, man, that's a train I will hop on because I mean, I saw Travis Barker on Joe Rogan, and Travis was talking about his friend that hasn't spoken in like 20-something years, hasn't said one word, and I thought about doing that for one day. And how hard it would be at work, you know, because someone comes to me and needs something. Not only do I have to write down or type out, I'm not talking, now I have to communicate with them somehow.
But, you're still talking, basically. You're just not,
You know, and I feel like that goes back to discipline. Like, I don't remember what his reasoning for it was, but whatever it was, he stayed disciplined. He went through the trials and tribulations of people being like, dude, why aren't you fucking talking back to me? You know, he had to go through that. And just that amount of discipline. And whatever it was for, again, he took the hard route. And, you keep saying, like, we need people to take the hard route. But in this social media age, that's even harder. Like, if you said that in 1995, you might have more people on board. But we need to be on board more, even more so now. But it's even harder now because everything is instant gratification.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's harder because we're seeing we could be canceled or not canceled, and that's why I think comedy, I mean, what Dave Chappelle is doing what Bill Burr is doing. I mean, you look at these guys and you just go, these are on the front lines for every artist on the planet. And these artists don't even know, right? So you look at what's going on in Cuba. I don't want to misquote my Cuba knowledge here, but I've been aware that there's not really been freedom of art making in Cuba for a while, or there were people that were compelled to do certain kinds of art for the government. Like art is an underground thing in a lot of countries. And it's not in the United States of America, but it is becoming that. And that's why I look at when I watch these stand-up comedies now, I just think these are the heroes. These are the dudes standing out front saying, and even there was something there was a Danny Glover, when y'all were doing your viral videos, the one that I watched where there was a skit with like Danny Glover, and you even added, well, this is comedy. It's okay that he said the N-word. And I thought two things. One, duh, like we already know that. Two, well, I thought three things. I'm glad he recognizes that. And three, it's just such a bummer that he even has to add that.
Has to say it. Yeah.
But I don't think you do have to say it. But I think we're being conditioned to think that we do have to say it. And that's just really dangerous, man. So when I think about art, or I think about the artists that are being canceled for going certain places or saying certain things, it's just like, I mean, I was canceled when I started singing. It wasn't because of anything I said. People were just like, dude, you can't sing. And I'm like, well, I like it though. But the art, it's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to push you. It's the place where you make the movies that tug the heart, that bring out the obvious. And we're losing that. And I think a lot of these people who are wanting people to start telling people to stop talking don't understand. You do that. I watched that new Tom Hanks movie, that one we went to the theater like 8 months ago or whatever, where he was the newsman going around the world. It was like a gritty Western that they kind of made PG, but you could tell that they only made it PG given the time that they released the movie. And I just thought, this is an example of what happens when you're placating or you're trying to not make something anymore that's, I don't want to say real, but challenging or beautiful, and
that's why I like Quentin Tarantino, because he definitely pushes the envelope.
We'll see. I think it's been easy for Quentin Tarantino. I think it's going to be fascinating to see if he uses some of the language that he's known for using in Number 10. Because I have the whole time, I love that you say Quentin, because the whole time I've been going, what is Quentin Tarantino going to say? Because let's be real, every single film has that racial element. And times have changed, Quentin. So it's going to be really fascinating to see if he does what I think he should do, which I think, A, he should do whatever he wants to do.
Yes.
And B, if someone tells him he can't do it, I want him to take his hundreds of millions of dollars and go do it himself. And that's why I think so many of these artists that complain about all these things, I'm just thinking, do you know what I've done with no money? Can you imagine what you can do with money? Mm-hmm. Take your $100,000, $500,000 and go make what you want to make, man.
Yeah.
And when they don't do that, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, man. I mean, even these, like, just say what you mean. I don't know, man. Say what you mean.
I feel like he's made it way too far with getting away with shit that he couldn't not be authentic and be him true self. Like, he would tell that person that says we shouldn't do this, no, fuck off, man. Either we're doing it or I'm going elsewhere. Like, he can't go out on Number 10 and it's some, sugar coated shit like that. It can't happen.
That's what we hope.
Man.
So what we're saying is, Quentin, come on, buddy, be Please. Real. Do what you got to do, Quentin. Because he won't get some of the funding that he would from before. So he might have to dig a little deeper or do it. Maybe you don't spend $100 million and do the whole city like 1960 Hollywood. Maybe you do something else. But no, man, censorship, man. Nah. Because you got to live with yourself. You got to be able to live with yourself. You got to be able to make your decisions, So
that's why comedy is funny, because I remember I was with a friend and we were watching comedy, and this is probably 2010, and the comedian made fun of this disease, and her sister happens to have this disease, and she was like, why are you laughing? I was like, because that was fucking hilarious. And she was like, but my sister has that. And I was like, Yeah, but the way he just made me think about it was funny. I
Yeah.
was like, my dad's paralyzed. If a comedian who was there to make you laugh and there to say edgy shit doesn't come off as just edgy and wrong, he actually makes you think about it and is like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. That fucking, I would never think about that, but I'm thinking about my dad. That's some shit he would do because he's paralyzed. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the censorship comes in is when it comes to comedy, especially now, if you're just some asshole spewing shit on Twitter, it's like
Yeah.
okay, you're just trying to
Yeah.
get a rise out of people. But if you're a comedian, you're there to get a rise out of people and then make them think about it. And it's like that's fucking hilarious and start laughing.
Yeah.
But people get offended. And they're like, that's not funny. Why is it
Yeah,
not
well, they're
funny?
not funny. They're not funny either. Yeah,
Exactly.
you're not funny. You think I'm not funny? Yeah, you're not funny.
It's fucking it's crazy. Like I get in certain situations, maybe a comedian just does some raw shit, but if people are laughing, that's my thing.
Do you have you seen Bill Burr where he talks about Arnold Schwarzenegger, that whole one, or about Rihanna getting beat up by Chris Brown?
Uh-uh.
That was where I really started recognizing the power of what you're talking about. Like one of the things he said about Rihanna, he basically said, "Do you think Rihanna was telling Chris Brown right before she got beat up that, oh, let's stop and get some ice cream?" He was like, no, she was probably saying, I fucked your friend and I fucked your friend's friend and I fucked all of them, you motherfucker. Like, that's what he said.
I did hear that.
Yeah. And then he goes into Arnold Schwarzenegger and he's telling the story of all of the things that Arnold Schwarzenegger accomplished. He's like, he was born in another country. He couldn't speak the language. He came over and married into a Kennedy. He became the governor of the state, et cetera, et cetera. But he had sex with his maid. Are you going to really throw away everything Arnold Schwarzenegger did because he was unfaithful to his wife? Like in that moment, I just went, oh my gosh, the power of this story that he just told. And then to
Yeah.
your point, that ability to reflect and go, that was hilarious. That was heavy. And he's totally right. And
Right.
that's the power of all of that stuff, and I hope people stick to it and they will. Like this it's just, I don't know, man.
I think, and I could be 100% wrong because I've never had this thought before, but I think it's a phase that we're going through, and I think it's gonna get much worse, and then it's gonna save itself. It's gonna get better. I don't know what that looks like, but that's just in my mind's eye is it's not getting better. It's getting worse because people are getting canceled for more stupid shit every day. And it's like, really? But I think it's going to get a little more worse before it has to get better.
Yeah, I hope. But at the end of the day, come on down to Hathaway Farms and get yourself a nice Christmas tree or a pumpkin or a blackberry or
Watermelon with seeds in it.
yeah, it can't you
Speed sitting on the Hathaway farm.
That's right.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're really wrestling with cancel culture and everything, me and my wife talk about it often, is that it's hard to imagine somebody or something being wholly good or wholly bad. Or that's what we want to imagine. Like when we look at heroes of history, we think they're wholly good or wholly bad. And when we look at the enemies of history, we're like, oh, they were so evil. Like, can't believe someone like that ever existed. But
Yeah.
life is a little bit more complicated than that. Not everybody's one way or the other. And then it gets even crazier when we're forced to reflect on ourselves.
Yeah.
And we see that we're not wholly good. So we have to wrestle with that bad. And it's like, or like, we were talking about a second ago, that's kind of like the theme of that song from Monotapes 5.
Yeah. Well, I think reading Mike Tyson's autobiography really kind of helped me with all of that. I thought this dude was 10 years old walking down the street with a like a semi-automatic rifle. He's 10 years old going into the houses and saying, all right, there's a TV, there's a VCR, there's 2 people sleeping in the bedroom. And he'd tell the guys outside and they go in, they tie him up and they'd rob him. And his mom beat him up, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just imagining what's that? And we think he's going to become the heavyweight champion of the world when he's 20 years old and have it together. And you start to see the humanity. And that's what I think becoming a father. When my baby was born and I watched the Final Four games and I'm watching Baylor play. And there's that dude, Mitchell. he's a point guard for Baylor. And to me, he played basketball like Lamar Jackson runs the ball. I thought he had that kind of. You think you've seen someone run on a basketball court, and then you see the speed that this guy had, and I just thought I've never seen that kind of cut. But I thought that was someone's baby. Like this dude with the big old calves and dunking it and all that, he was born and loved on, and someone kissed on him and had dreams for him. And you really, when you have a child, you see the bigness of what a human being actually is, and the respect for a person's life, the understanding that I get that life is hard, um, the understanding of why they make the bad decision or the good decision, and but just like you're saying, just being real about it. Like this is what it is, right? Like I got a migraine. I got 100 chickens that need moved. The chickens cannot move. I have a migraine. The chickens will die if I don't give them water, but I have a migraine. No, you get up and you go give them the chickens your water, you know? And but that bigness of life and the beauty of having your own child and seeing the humanity in other people. And you look at Mike Tyson and you go, that dude is crazy, but he is who he is. And he's got an amazing life and an amazing story. And yeah, but we need that grace. But we also need to call a spade a spade. I mean, you know, it's like, no, dude, you're a dick. Get out. Like you did bad.
And that's you know, to go with Mike Tyson, it's like I've brought it up on here before, but it's like with Joe Rogan, what he said is once I had my first kid and once I had more kids, it changed the way I look at adults. I look at adults like, holy shit, you were a baby at once
Yeah.
and you were innocent. And as life has went on, life has fucked you more. So your
Yeah.
innocence is gone. And he was like, I used to just look at adults like, dude, you're being an asshole. But now I look at him like, yeah, you're being an asshole. It's inexcusable at this moment. But you were a baby at once. You've been through
Mm-hmm.
some shit. So the reason you're being an asshole in this moment is because of everything that has happened previous in your life. Now, am I saying it's inexcusable? No, it's not excusable. Like, you're being an asshole. But the fact that he can do that, you know, because I don't have any kids, but just him saying that, I'm like, oh shit, that makes me look at people different,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And um you mentioned earlier, what were you saying? Oh, looking at your baby and being like, I will never leave you. And also having the other thought of I see why people or how
Yeah.
people leave their kids, you know, and you mentioned your father, and also in Monotapes 5, you say something along the lines, I finally be able to forgive my father.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So does it have to do with that dynamic of he wasn't really in your life, or
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. The relationship with my dad has been rocky, but it's good, but it is what it is. Yeah, so I mean, shorter story, he left when I was 5, and then I didn't really, and everything was all good, see him on the weekends until I was 12, and then he got a third wife, and she was nuts, and I was like, this lady's crazy, and then I don't really talk to him for 5 or 6 years. Then he comes back when I'm uh, 18 or 19. I never had a problem forgiving my dad. That's just the lyric.
gotcha?
It just is what it is. I could see it's obviously in me where I did have to forgive my dad. But when I was a kid and my dad abandoned me, if you will, and his whole family, I told him I forgave him when I was a kid. I called him
Mm,
up and said, "You're doing bad, but I forgive you. I love you. You're my dad." And that's all it was. It never got any more complicated than that. He came back. He tried to keep kind of apologizing about stuff, and I was like, "It's over. We're moving on."
gotcha.
Done, and we're moving forward. So um, there's little things I've said about my family, but I don't really intend to get hard into it until people are dead, you know, because I even thought about that. I don't think my dad's listening to it, but he messed up. It's like, yeah, it's your bad, dad. You know, and then even having my own kid, like I kind of could think about my family and my upbringing. And there were some things where I was a little sensitive at first that I thought like, oh, I'm feeling this because of the way it was in my family, you know, but um, I've always felt like I'm a forgiving person, pretty much. I mean, that doesn't mean I want to keep talking to you, but I don't really like hold hatred in my heart or
Right.
bitterness. If I do, it's in a really weird place that is totally outside of importance, right? I think I let the real stuff go. And then you know, you get mad like, why does the city of Fort Smith need to know what job I have for me to get my electricity turned on, you know? And then I just get raging about that stuff. But it's like, oh, your dad sucked. Well, yeah, you know, my dad sucks, but whatever.
Right, right.
But that lyric was hard for me to write, but I wrote it and I recorded it, and that was that. I mean, it was in and out. But I remember when I showed it to someone, they were like, "Ooh, that's heavy." Like they're like, "Doom, doom, 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 doom." Ooh.
That's also what I like about, you know, about the mono tapes is some of the songs will have a happy vibe to it, but the lyrics are like, this isn't happy, you know.
No. Yeah.
I love that because it's like, yeah, you can dance around to it, you know, have fun to it, but listen to the lyrics and it's like, gotcha.
Yeah. And that's trying to live in that world of good things, bad things.
Right.
Yeah. No, the lyrics on monotapes are weird. I just started moaning. But anyway.
I think that's, you know, that goes back to the very beginning of me saying just your personality bled through. You know, it doesn't sound like you sat down and wrote lyrics and adjusted lyrics, and it sounds like you were like, this is who I am, you know.
Yeah, like that song Star. I wrote Star. There's only one existing recording. That would have been probably at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like I did so much stuff in the morning. I think really well before 10 a.m. My day is like 6 to 10, 6 to 11. After that, I'm fried. So most of this was happening early in the morning, but I wrote that song Star and I thought, I can't believe I just wrote that. And lyrically, like the way I dropped the MF bomb, but that song felt like it came from somewhere outside of me and I just captured it. But that's kind of what all of them felt like. But when I wrote monotapes, I was like, or when I wrote Star, I just thought, this is a freaking banger.
It is.
Like, it's like a 9 Inch Nails strip club banger. And I vibed it, I hit record, and that was it. And I only have that one recording, and I'm like, nothing needs done. It's over, man.
Hell yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I kind of want to wrap things up on I guess, more of a spiritual, philosophizing note. I mean, I think this would be perfect with you being a new father and seeing your admiration towards your children. Reflecting on like Christian upbringing and everything that's brought for each of us in our individual lives. I think for me, the verse that stands out most, and I'm probably gonna misquote it, but where Jesus is talking to his disciples and he has children around him, and he says, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must come like these small children. And one thing I've been seeing, the people that have the most joy, at least as they present on camera, are the people that can tap into their inner child almost at will. So I just kind of want to hear you riff on that idea of what it means to observe a child.
Yeah.
And what it means to add some of those innocent and whimsical aspects of childlike behavior and thinking in your own life to find your own inner child.
When I think about child, when I think about Hawk, my son, it's wonder, right? I've always said, if God is anything, he's a little bit retarded in that there's something that human beings, we like doing the same thing, or we like the promise of God to me, or the promise of a life of worth living is a life of wonder, where everything is new, right? So my memory is pretty shady. So I thought y'all were going to be like, well, tell me about a Josh Scoggins story. And I was going to go, I got 2 of them. Even my wife and I were on the porch today talking about something from our childhood, like about my little brother. We're 5 years different. She's like, do you remember him as a little kid? And I'm like, no. We all are only 5 years apart. Yeah, but no. I don't remember being like my little brother, or any of my brothers for that matter. But when I said Hawk was tripping out, literally a child can wake up and see a face, and he didn't see a face before he went to sleep. It's that kind of leaps that are happening in a child. So one day my son can't move his hands with any direction, and then the next day he can grab something, right? When he saw those flowers, the look on his face was he has never seen a flower before, and it was the most amazing thing he's ever seen. When he had that wind hitting his little naked body, that was new to him, right? So when I think about like God, whatever he is, whoever he is, there's a creative joy in seeing those things like the wind on your naked body, looking at a flower and not thinking anything except, dude, this is a flower. Like, what is, look how beautiful this is, you know? Or my child's, you know, one day he doesn't think peekaboo is funny. And then all of a sudden you can peekaboo him and he's cracking up on the floor laughing. So I'm a little, like when I said I'm a little bit retarded, like I don't listen to a lot of music anymore. When I say I listen to Arm & Hammer Paraffin album, I listen to that for a week without listening to anything else, right? I just get in these rhythms and there's a newness. So the kind of life that I tend to live is a little bit amnesia-like, in that so many things feel new all the time. And curiosity and childhood and wonder, you know, that's one of the things, to get a little bit political, the thing that's happening with the science world and how we're growing in our understanding of coronavirus, for example. Okay, obviously we're going to have a changing understanding of a thing, and we're learning and we're curious and we're trying to figure it out. So I think when you lose curiosity, when you lose wonder, when you're not able to look at the stars and go, isn't that beautiful? Or when you see a sunset, like, or laughing with your friend, or appreciating a good drink or a smoke, like, if you're not living in that, your world is dying, I think. Because what else is there except like a certain sense of newness and wonder and joy? Because if you take away wonder, I don't know if there's any joy. If you take away joy, I don't know that there's anything new, right? We are so creative as human beings, right? We don't just want to have a job. We want to make money. We don't just want to make $5. We want to make $10. We want to take that $10 and we want to buy Dogecoin. And we want that Dogecoin to go through the roof, right? There's this creative moving forward element, and some of that has to be tempered with this sense of wonder and joy. And you know, when we were able to eat our first meal that was 95% all our meal, you know, I could have just ate the meal, but I had to have a little bit of reflection and go, I know where this chicken came from. I know where this spinach came from. I know what the intention I put behind it. I worked really hard. I read a lot to figure out how to do this. Let's give thanks, right? And then we hold hands. So like my wife and I, it's important to us and for our child, like we don't know who we're praying to or whatever, but we're going to pray to something and we're going to say thank you, because it just creates this sense of thankfulness, right? So when I say wonder and curiosity, thankfulness is what I'm really after in life. Like, I am thankful that I got to be asked to talk to you guys today. I am thankful that my wife hasn't left me. I am thankful that I get to live in a mobile home on a dirt road in Arkansas. I'm thankful for my Bradley Hathaway days, right? But guess what? My Bradley Hathaway t-shirts are now being ripped up and used to wipe my baby's butt, right? Like literally my face has my baby's poo-poo on it now. And the other posters are in the garden. And like, if you lose that sense of joy, I don't know how you get it back, but that's where I go back to, well, maybe you do the hard thing and you think about it. Maybe you just go camping and look at the stars. Maybe you invite this presence or this wonder back into your life. Maybe you think positively. And that's what I think of when I think of Hawk. I think of this newness and this joy, and I want to foster that in him. I want him to know, like, no, dude, you get naked and piss in the wind. That's what we do. That's what the Hathaways do, right? Yeah. And enter into life with that, and that and yeah.
Hey,
there we go.
I think that is a beautiful way to end it. Hell yeah.
Well, all right, man.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, man. Thank you for giving us your time, your everything. That was fucking awesome.
Thanks for listening. You're one of the 13 people listening to the monotape, so I appreciate it. And yeah. I guess we'll leave what's that song? Something what? Some days. I guess we'll leave some days in there, man.
Yes. Yeah, please do.
Yeah, but don't hang up when this is over though. But yeah, we can say goodbye for the world.
All right, cool. Well, Bobby, let these people.
Hey, you motherfuckers stay black.
Don't be whack.